Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is London News. We're on the wall. We're in dust. So let's go down to the UK. We have Dominic over there with Dominic Bayliss. He's got a YouTube channel in the UK, and we've got Jody, JOODEE. So we got Jody here in Melbourne, Australia, and we're just going to go to another screen so we won't look so anyway. Well, Dominic, what's the weather like over there in England? Apparently it was pretty hot yesterday. What's happening there today? And tell us a bit about yesterday.
Yes, yesterday, very hot, lots of sunshine. Everyone was melting because we're not used to the heat in England. And everyone was going, oh, it's too hot. And today, it's still hot, but it's wet.
What was the temperature yesterday?
Where I was, and I was in the historic Warwickshire, it was 33.5 degrees on the building site.
What do you reckon that, Jody? It must be the half that was the damaging bit. What do you reckon, Jody?
Oh yeah, that would be hot over there, and it would be hot in the building site, Dominique.
Yes, indeed, it was.
Yeah, it's a strange place. Every couple of years they get the weather, and it's global warming today, back to normal. So anyway, what's happening over there?
Is it global warming or is it nature's cycle? We're in a grand solar minimum, aren't we?
Well, Dominic, I noticed they're still doing muzzle testing over there in England. I saw your video recently, and you had a little run-in with a tent that was hardly anybody there. What was the story on that one? Can you remember?
Oh, yes, I do remember that one. I was actually purely filming an Ultra HD video at the time, just testing out the quality of the camera. And I thought, well, I'm in town, I had to go and drop a parcel off. And I thought while I'm walking through town, I'll just make a film, see how it comes out. And this clown suddenly appeared in front of me, telling me, are you filming? I said, well, yes. He said, can you stop filming? And I said, well, no, I'm filming, I'm allowed to film. And there happened to be a constable just to the side of me. So I said, constable, can you tell this man I can film in public? And the constable nodded his head. He said, yes, he can, yes. And I said, there you go, mate. I carried on walking, and he was going, well, I prefer it if you didn't film. I said, well, you can prefer what you want. I'm in public, you're in public, and I'm filming. And I just went past because I purely was just doing a test. And I wasn't interested in what was going on there. But afterwards, I did think about that could have been a nice little video if I'd kept him talking and, stuck my nose in a bit more and been a bit more problematic, whatever the word is. But yeah, just goes to show, as soon as you pop in somewhere, there's always someone on your back. Just because he got a lanyard on, he thought he was the big I am. He got told by the constable. So yeah, and there was no one there. They were all sat in there with the masks down like this. As soon as I walked past, they were pulling them up. There was no one there. I think there must have been about 8 or 10 members of the NHS, and the place, Kidderminster, is like a ghost town, and there was nothing going on. Nothing.
Hello, sir. Not videoing this, are you?
Yeah, I'm.
Could you stop videoing?
No, not at all. No, I'm in public, see. If you've got a problem, ask the officer, he'll tell you.
Yeah.
I'm in public, aren't I, officer? Constable, I'm allowed to film. Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah, I'd rather you didn't entirely...
You can rather what you like. I'm filming. I'm in public. What a waste of money.
I'll put a clip of that up on this video. Yes. Well, Jody, I think, Jody, you found a place recently, didn't you, that wasn't there before, and it just appeared all of a sudden. I noticed all the other scrampy, I call them tinkers' tents, they've all gone from normal locations. So you popped up across one just recently.
Yeah, I did. And I happened to be on the phone talking to you at the time because I was like, whoa, hang on, I need to go take a video. And I can't remember how many months it's been since they sort of didn't have those big tents up, and it was at a university. So I believe a university would be offering a public service called education. So there should be no jurisdiction there where they can pull the whole you can't video. So I just did park in there and go have a look around. And I didn't actually notice they had signs up no videoing. So I think they've learnt from the freedom movement that we like to get our evidence of what's going on. And so the guy did come up, and I said, well, do you know your law? And he said, yes, I do. And then I said, are you offering a public service here? And he said, yes. And I said, well, then you should know we're in a public domain and I have every right to video. So then he goes, oh, but our staff, we're protecting them. I said, they're all masked up, mate. We can't even see your faces. And then I just said, look, I've got the evidence I need. Thank you very much. And walked away.
It's
Was it?
amazing. I can't understand that they make themselves look like fools, and some police in England, I noticed them, and in America, they it's like a fish, like a bait to a fish. They come up and they make fools of themselves. I mean, God's sakes, just learn the law. If somebody's got a camera, just behave a little better than you normally would, rather than making a fool of yourself. But it seems to be the norm. But we just had an election here, Dominic, and we have now the Labour Party, which are the criminals of Australia, criminals which are very much in link with the criminals over in the USA. I won't mention which party they are, but they're if they went for an intelligence test, our leaders, they'd both fail. So to give you an idea who I'm talking about. And we've got a Governor General here, Jody, and Jody came up with a great name. What do you call him? The Great Goose, wasn't it, or something?
Yep,
They're nice.
GG, the Great Goose.
Well, the Great Goose is supposed to be the Queen's representative, and he's probably one of the great example of fraud that ever was seen on television, right, or anywhere for that matter.
Yeah.
So that goose, we're going to take the Great Goose to the Common Law Court on the 26th before a grand jury. So what do you reckon is happening here, Jody? Can you see any future for Australia with the Labour Party now that they're in the States? I think there's only about 2 states left that's not Labour, but the federal, which is a foul smelling, the name federal broken down means foul smell. So what do you reckon? Are we in a bad way, Jody?
Oh, we are in a bad way. We're in such a bad way. They've just, ushered in the new puppet. Did you know there was an article that Albo has been compared to Plato? Are you kidding me?
Compared to who?
The famous philosopher Plato. Yeah, I know. And this was an article written in 2018, and it was something to do with the UN. Fascinating, right? Fascinating. So obviously they knew he was going to be the next puppet to move in. So
well,
goes ScoMo, in rolls Albo.
In my personal opinion, Albanese, I can't even say his name, has just got a head to keep his ears apart. What's the health minister, not the health minister, but the energy minister, or the clown, and then an Albo together, mate. It's just like the Two Stooges. And
it's actually, when you think about it, if we think about it on a bigger scale, this is kind of how my mind works sometimes. I think from an outside perspective, if you're from overseas and you look at our politicians, now these are supposed to be the people at the top of their game, right? Technically speaking, but have a look at them. They're absolute muppets. Seriously.
That's exactly what they are, aren't they? They're just being having their strings pulled by those.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. And so, I don't know. It's just kind of embarrassing. Like when you look at them, the health ministers are the most hilarious because they're the most unhealthy people you've ever come across in your life. If they're about health, shouldn't they be glowing with health? Just little things like that. It's like from an international perspective, we must look really silly.
Well, the human race is pretty dumb because animals, they pick the strongest of the pack to lead. And here we pick the weakest bunch of people, not just in this country, but most countries. We've got I call them, well, I don't, you've got to be very careful what I call them, but they all sit down to pee, all these men.
Mm-hmm.
Weird looking characters, and brain-wise, they're actually, I think if they were to speak their mind, they wouldn't get the job. So they're just basically puppets. They're controlled by the deep states all over the place. One world government is, and the biggest fools that I've seen tonight a little bit on the news where all the mask thing is gone here, and there's people whinging about it. They want to wear masks. Well, good on you, wear them. Don't post it down my neck.
That's the left.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing, we're sort of relating ourselves with animals. I mean, the only reason animals are doing okay, they don't deal with cash, do they, and money, but we do, right? And there's where the corruption comes in, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's a good job they don't. 'Cause they'll be a lot better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think cash, when you mix money and business and corruption and politicians, it rules the roost. And I'd say this is something off the top of my head, and it's just my personal opinion, but I think China will take over Australia, either physically, they've taken it over mentally, but I think they'll take over. They will come in here. They won't, people, they're on about Taiwan. China doesn't want Taiwan. They could take it tomorrow. And I think China will invade Australia because we've got everything they need and everything they don't have. So they'll probably come in here, and unless the Americans get back Donald Trump, this will probably get us struck off with that a leader like Donald Trump. I'll say it again for the third time, Donald Trump. I have to edit that. I think I'll put this on Rumble. But anyway, if we had that strong leader back in the USA, this would never have happened. And the chances of it happening now, I think, is pretty severe, because they don't need there won't be any armies needed here. It's just basically come in and take over the place. Half the Chinese people are here already.
Yeah. Well, cost of living is something that needs to be brought up to the agenda. I mean, I'm working quite a distance now traveling, and I kid you not, it's costing me an arm and a leg. Let's just say that, don't want to go into pounds and notes, but it's costing me more than I should be. And when you go to the supermarket and you do your shopping, that's gone up at least 30%, I'd say, on average, with butter. Anything corn-fed chicken, they've gone up. Anything to do with fuel, everything's going up. Look at the energy prices when you're paying your gas and electric at home. I mean, they're talking about, it's expensive enough as it is now, but they're talking when it comes to autumn, it's going to be like double. Now, people can't afford, your general working geezer lady on the street can't afford what's going on now. Hence why when I go to town, it's like a ghost town. Now, what's it going to be like come autumn when they're dealing with Christmas? Their children need presents. They're going to have fairy lights outside? Are they going to be able to afford to have the fairy lights? That's what I'm going to watch out for.
Absolutely. Small business here has been decimated by the lockdowns. Now they're talking about price rises with the electricity as well here. And so people that's their business and they're relying on, electricity as an overhead. So what do? Do they have to now readjust their rates for their customers? Then, so that they can afford to actually run their business. They don't want to pass on that cost, but they're going to have to. And then people are already struggling financially to pay for things. So this is where it's just going to cause a big, big problem.
Yes.
So, what do we do about that,
Yeah, it's strange because on that video, it's on YouTube I put up just recently, and it come from Fox News. I got to be careful if we mention the term Fox News. But I think it was 2,000 head of cattle on one ranch died on the same day. And then they mentioned about a whole lot of poultry died. And of course, the Americans farmers have been plowing their crops back into the ground for a long time. And in here in Australia, if they're not owned by Chinese, the farmers are being treated really bad with having to buy water. I mean, really, there's so many things. I think this all goes back to that meeting they had in New York in 2013. I think that's the correct time and year. It comes under reducing the population. Again, we've got to be careful how we say that. Reduce the population, and hence that's exactly what's happening. And of course, they're going to, if they will slowly, I think, believe they will try and starve the people into total submission. I mean, they're really suppressed right now. They're brainwashed to the extent where they're so obedient that they can't even give up being tortured. They're going to wear muzzles even in cars when there's on a hot day or on a cold day. So I don't know what the heck we're going to do about it. We're not going to win. And you don't mention the word educating anybody because they don't want to be educated. So where we go from here is just trying to get the message out, do the best we can. I mean, many people will see this, 500 or 600 people maybe, but maybe 1,000 people. But there's 5 million, 20 odd million here and around the world. It's, it's just a drop in the ocean. So if you got any suggestions, Jody, what we can do to boost people's minds, I don't know. It's because when they're hungry, then that will be bad. That will start a revolution of some kind.
It will, yeah. I mean, they've got to hurt to be able to stand up. Some people, I mean, we've stood up already because we know what's coming. And there's some people that actually have to have it so in their face, really painful, to be able to even start considering that they need to do something about it. But what I have been noticing is there's a bit of a movement around, and I've seen this worldwide because I watched a video of a guy. It was probably the best half an hour of YouTube video I've seen in a long time because it was really inspirational. It's a guy, I think his name is Rob Greenfield. You can look up his channel. And his goal was for 1 year, he would grow, he would produce everything himself that he consumes. And so he knows he's just using his front yard of his normal house block. And within 7 months, he had papayas with fruit like this big on the tree in 7 months. He's eating out of the garden, and he's in contact with people who do community gardens. They're planting fruit trees on nature strips, just out in the streets. And then I've noticed in my area, there's 2 houses that have done this. And one of my friends said, and this is really interesting about our mindset and the indoctrination. And he goes, but it's in the front yard and it's not fenced. I said, yeah. He goes, what if people go and steal their food? And I go, this is the way they have brainwashed us, is that lack mentality. I said, if someone did do that, I'd put a sign out the front and go, please knock on the door and I'll give you whatever else you need. And so we need to live in this abundance mentality. If we've got a lot of people doing this in the streets, growing their own food and being self-sufficient, there would be no lack. There would be enough for everyone. There'd be surplus. And people have found that when they do start growing their own, there is so much because, if you're using proper seeds that aren't GMO'd, you've got abundance. And that's how we can do all those things like seed swapping. So I think there's quite a movement now of people starting to grow things again. And so I'm actually starting a garden here too. And I actually am a member of Diggers Club here in Melbourne, and they specialize in heirloom seeds. So it's just going to be really exciting to be able to start doing that again. And the more people that do this, the better off everyone's going to be. Go back to the old days, pretty much,
Yeah.
village living.
The government, someone told me they were going to try and stop people growing food in their homes. I know for a fact there's a farm down here in Baxter. It's natural, what do you call it, organic food, and they had a couple of farms, but the government came along. The corporation came along and says you can only sell what you grow on this farm. You can't sell the stuff from the other farm. So they made them open up a shop in Baxter, which is a beautiful place, great lot of food, where they can sell from both farms, which they own. Now, there's another group of farms, natural or organic food again, they're going to try and shut them down. So that is on the agenda, and we all know about agendas. They're going to try and shut these producers down. So we'll have to buy the poisonous food, which is contaminated with every goddamn chemical from the so-called bloody outlets, So in England, as the food prices, Dominic, things have obviously gone up there, but I don't actually lived in England, as you obviously know. There's nowhere to grow anything anymore. The market, remember the people had gardens years ago. That's all gone now, isn't it, Dominic?
Well, if you got allotments, haven't you, where you can put your name down, I guess. I haven't. There's one near me. I've never put my name down, and I have got a little veggie patch with lettuce and so on growing, because I do like to have stuff out the garden. But yeah, allotments, I believe it goes down through the family. It's like very, very difficult to get hold of something like that. But when Jody was just saying there about everyone growing the stuff on the front of the house and everything, wouldn't it be great if the local council, instead of putting pretty plants in the parks, just grew pretty vegetables, and everyone could go along. Squirrels would be happy, people would be happy walking through the park, picking a bit of lettuce to bring home, and a potato. That'd be a cracking idea, but never going to happen, is it? And I think what they're doing is, I think they're cutting away, they're getting rid of your middleman, right? Definitely the lower one, and just want the hierarchy rule in the world, and just brushing away anyone else, just the hierarchy, the likes of the big boys, right? You'll be able to phone up, I don't know the name, is it a mason, something sounding like that, and order a bricklayer probably in a couple of years, because you can't get them. No one can get them, but they'll probably supply them at great expense for a day. I don't know. That might be an idea, but it's the way it's going. Big boys.
It's a big boys club. Well, there's I love when the government, again, no government, the corporation come along and say, we've created 1,700 jobs, you know, but they didn't tell people most of them were in McDonald's, or as somebody once described as paper hat jobs, you know, retail and stuff, because in Gough Whitlam here, and of course England was party to the Lima Agreement in 1973, where they sent all the factories over to China and other countries, and they trained them, and now they're whinging about China being very rich and wealthy and powerful, because they still, you know, even the medicines is made there, you know. I mean, if unless the people demand, I mean, England was probably, I remember from the 60s, it was in the Midlands, around a bit away from where you're out in Worcestershire, Dominic, but in the Midlands, the ground was always a little bit of vibration and from all the factories making car parts and stuff. And it just turned into market gardens made with houses on them. So there's nothing left, and nothing left here, no manufacturing, there's nothing. And whose fault is it? It's the idiots walking around wearing muzzles today. And of course, branch stacking, they bring in foreigners that don't even speak English, which is great in ways. You know, there's some fantastic people, but they've become part of Australia after the war. But they bring in ones now that will never assimilate, never take part, and they'll all vote for Labour. So we're doomed, as Mr. Mannering says, and that Dad's Army, Mr. Mannering, we're doomed. Okay, well, I'd like to thank Dominic over there in the UK, sitting in a few cobwebs and waving, and of course, Jodie's here as an around picture on the wall, and we'll catch all you guys next week. So next week we hope to have Ben Gilroy from Dublin. He's one of the great men who stopped a lot of evictions, and we hope to see him next week, and we'll bring in people as we go along. So it's London of News signing off. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you all again. Bye for now.